Welcome into the Sporting News Studios, talking NCAA Tournament with our college basketball writer, Ryan Fagan. I'm Tom Vandervoort. We are talking, Ryan, about the Midwest region and helping folks with their Bracket Insanity picks. Bracket Insanity brought to us this year by Subway. We thank them very much for that. And, of course, we're looking at North Carolina in the Midwest, #1 seed. They lost in the conference tournament final, the ACC conference tournament final to Florida State. How strong do they look to you this year, the Carolina Tar Heels?
Well, if they're healthy, they have more talent than anyone out there aside from Kentucky. The question is, John Henson getting hurt, injuring his wrist in the ACC tournament. How healthy is he going to be? He sat out the game against Florida State. If he's healthy, if he's that shot blocking presence in there, I think you can almost go ahead and write their ticket at least to the Elite Eight, maybe to the Final Four.
It's interesting you talk about defense because Florida State shot 58% against these guys, and we have seen some kind of maybe a lack of intensity at times from them this year.
I don't know if I'd say intensity, but they lose focus.
Maybe
sometimes they lose focus defensively. They lose focus offensively sometimes too. They have so much talent that it almost looks like they feel that it runs itself. Well, you've got to focus and you've got to make it run itself.
Right.
And I think that that's something that Kendall Marshall has done a better job of this year. There were long stretches last year where Carolina would kind of go into these funks. This year, when it happens, it's for 4 or 5 minutes. But 4 or 5 minutes,
to a half.
Right, exactly. But 4 or 5 minutes in the tournament, sometimes that's all it takes.
Right. Now, talk about Kansas down at the bottom half of the bracket. A very good team this year. Obviously disappointing they lost in the conference tournament. But where do they stack up right now?
Well, I think you look at their best two players, and Tyshawn Taylor, the guard, and Thomas Robinson, the power forward and / center. I mean, those two guys are capable of carrying a team. Either one of them, and Bill Self has done a fantastic job this year. He's selfless, yes. As a coach, because he's built this team around these two all-star, these all-American type players, and he's really placed these role guys into situations where they can succeed.
Right.
And that's important. He's not asking too much for them, but he's asking what they're capable of giving him, and he's figured out exactly what they're capable of. And he's done a great job of getting this to be a very, very good team.
Now, in the 12-5 matchup, which I always like to look at, Temple's going to play either California or South Florida. Obviously, those two teams squeaking into the tournament here.
Right.
Can either one of those give Temple a run for its money?
I would say no offhand. Although I will say that Temple struggled a little bit down the stretch. They didn't play quite as well as they were in the middle of the season when they really expanded their lead in the Atlantic 10 and got that #1 seed. But I love what Temple has. They've got Ramon Moore, Juan Fernandez, and Cliff Wyatt, the three guards who really are veteran guys they're not afraid to take big shots. They can all handle the basketball. And with Michael Eric, their big guy in the middle, once he came back, that added a rebounding and shot blocking presence that they'd really been lacking. And I think Temple is a team that they can make it to the second weekend.
Now, the 8-9 game is real interesting to me. Creighton, a very, very good team. And you got Alabama out of the SEC. How do you see that game going?
Right. Well, obviously Alabama had the issues with Coach Anthony Grant suspending a couple players for reasons that they haven't disclosed. Violation of team rules, I believe, is the term. But a couple of those guys back. Tony Mitchell, who's one of the best dunkers in the country, he's gone. He's not coming back. And then you look at Creighton. Creighton's a team. I kind of feel like, I know I said this with Memphis, but I feel like they're a little bit seated low at 8. I think you look at their record. They're 28-5 this year. They won the Missouri Valley Conference. They've got an All-American candidate in Doug McDermott, a guy who shoots the ball at almost 50% from the three-point line, 60% from the field.
Man.
Just great numbers.
That's so valuable.
Yeah, that's
that helps.
It's a good skill to have. But I think that I really thought they'd be a 6 seed, maybe a 7 at worst. And I'm sure they're going to look to prove it. It's interesting, too, because Doug McDermott was high school teammates with Harrison Barnes in Ames, Iowa. So the fact that they could meet in their second game could be pretty interesting.
Very interesting. Now, if I'm trolling this thing for upsets, because, in Bracket Insanity, you do get more points for the upset, which lower seed do you see possibly making a move, or maybe even making a little run here through the tournament?
I think Ohio is a very interesting team. They've got a couple good guards, and DJ Cooper, is a very explosive guy. He's one of those guys that he's never met a shot he didn't like. And when they're going down, they can be they can be very dangerous. And their opponent, Michigan, is a 4 seed. Michigan's so tough. They value the ball defensively. Trey Burke, their freshman point guard, has come in and done a fantastic job. But Michigan goes as Tim Hardaway Jr. goes. When he's on, they're a Final Four type team. When he's not, they're a team that's vulnerable because they don't score in bunches. And I think that if he's struggling and Ohio gets out to a good start. We remember a couple years ago when Ohio played Georgetown,
right?
And I believe it was a 14-3 game. Ohio came out, blew the doors off early, and wound up winning, by 15, 16, 17 points, and never let Georgetown back into the game. There are some of the same guys on this team, and I'm sure they remember that feeling.
Well, Georgetown is an interesting case because, once again, they are in a 3-14 game against Belmont, and I heard the chatter upstairs. Georgetown better be careful. What's your take on that matchup?
Well, Belmont's a team. Coming into this year, people thought that they almost deserve to be ranked because they have a very veteran squad. We say that all the time, but they have a veteran squad, and they play 9 or 10 guys all the time. They don't give anybody 30 minutes a game. They run these guys in waves. They keep them fresh. They've got a lot of veterans on that team. They played Duke very, very well early in the season. They played Memphis very well early in the season, but they lost both those games, and I think people kind of forgot about them. They dropped a couple games in their conference, but they're a team that now that they're here, and they have the experience. They played Wisconsin very well last year in the tournament.
Right.
And I think that they're a team that they're going to give Georgetown lots of trouble.
All right, we'll see what happens in the Midwest region. That's our look at it with Ryan Fagan. I'm Tom Vandervoort. And don't forget, Subway is bringing us Bracket Insanity this year. You can play that on Facebook. Just go to bracketinsanity.com, and we will see you next time. We'll be here after. Are we allowed to call it the first round? I guess it's the second round.
We can call it the first game.
All right, after most teams' first game, we'll be back to talk about what happened and what to look for next. For Ryan Fagan, again, I'm Tom Vandervoort, and we will see you next time.